It's no secret that the WNBA referees need to be investigated immediately.
The WNBA's celebratory narrative has collapsed. What began as a season of record viewership has devolved into a scandal so severe it has reportedly triggered an FBI inquiry. Reports now allege federal authorities are scrutinizing claims that WNBA referees targeted certain players, with the primary focus on Caitlin Clark.
The WNBA referees, man, there has been a lot of conversations this past season in regards to the commissioner, the referees, and the injuries. Now, some new data has been revealed, but we're going to talk about this thing because they trying to say the referees and all these different set issues is not responsible for the injury.
After months of brutal physicality, ignored infractions, and suspect officiating, the fan base is demanding accountability. How systemic is this rot? Who is truly protecting the league's brand? And why does Caitlin Clark consistently find herself at the epicenter of these attacks?
When they see players like Caitlin, see players like Sophie, and all of the other big name players making massive money, and everybody know they hate their guts. Well, not massive money like in a W sense, but more than them. They make more than them, bro. They make more than them. They might feel a type of way. How would you feel wake up going to work every day knowing that these ladies make more than me?
It began with a single brutal moment fans refused to forget, the hard foul that sent Caitlin Clark crashing down mid-season. Initially dismissed as just another aggressive play in a physical league, the aftermath turned it into a national controversy. Viral clips of officials standing motionless as Clark took blow after blow exploded online. Analysts began dissecting why so many dangerous plays were being ignored. The league's official silence only intensified the public fury, leaving fans convinced a much deeper game was being played behind the scenes.
WNBA referee operations reviews data throughout the season to address what league sources refer to as a legitimate criticism and pinpoint areas officials need to improve on throughout that process. The referee operation committee found that accusations that officiating errors have led to more injuries were unfounded, league sources told ESPN.
Commentators began to construct a damning timeline. Over the season, Caitlin Clark had absorbed more flagrant contact than any rookie in memory, but the whistles mysteriously vanished whenever she was the clear victim of retaliation. Social media then erupted, flooded with side-by-side videos comparing fouls on Clark to similar incidents in other games where the difference was shocking. The fan base was no longer just angry, it was now deeply and collectively suspicious.
They saying that the officiating is not leading to injuries. Well, to me, I think it is based off all of the WNBA I've seen this past season. I think a lot of their officiating is just like leading up to a bunch of stuff, bro. A bunch of stuff. Because it's getting to the point right now that the referees need to be looked upon as being alters of the game and need to be investigated on a major level, DOJ level. That's how bad the officiating is, bro.
Behind closed doors, frustration spread through locker rooms. Players reportedly argued that the officiating's inconsistency was not just inept, it had become dangerous. Coaches started to challenge the league's accountability, speculating how many more dangerous calls must be missed before someone was seriously injured.
This is getting spooky for them to come out here and say this at the end of the season that they feel as if their referees is not resulting in injuries when we clearly know that it is.
When Clark herself was pressed on the rising tension, her response was both measured and revealing. "I just play through it." That quiet declaration spoke volumes, hinting at the immense emotional toll this situation had taken on her. The breaking point came when a critical mass of fans filed formal complaints about player safety and clear referee misconduct.
Because we know this year there was major injuries on a legendary level. Now, this article goes on to say the WNBA will not punish through fines or suspension officials for a single error, but it is instead assess their body of work through the season. If there is a common string of mistakes, that will be addressed, sources has said. So basically, if you miss a call and you alter a game, y'all want to know what the W said? Oh, don't worry about it. We got to see a string of events, and then we're going to handle that behind the scenes.
The league's public relations strategy faltered. The damage was irreversible. The central question had shifted from mere referee incompetence to the far more sinister possibility of targeted bias. With mounting demands for transparency, the WNBA's real crisis was just unfolding.
Y'all mean to tell me that shouldn't spark a DOJ, Department of Justice, governmental investigation? I think it should be. And I think it should be a major investigation into the W as a whole. Kathy should be investigated. Everything should be investigated based off everything we heard, seen, probably documented. I'm not the only one, bro.
As the clips of Caitlin Clark's uncalled foul saturated every corner of social media, one thing became undeniable. The WNBA was not ready to talk. Days bled into weeks, yet no official statement emerged from the league office or Commissioner Kathy Engelbert. That silence was deafening. Fans began to interpret it as more than just oversight. It looked like calculated avoidance. Hashtags like #ProtectCaitlin Clark and #WNBRFs exposed started trending globally, with fans demanding accountability. Major sports outlets began covering the outrage, noting how the league's inaction was actively fueling mistrust among its most loyal supporters. The frustration was not just digital. Inside arenas, fans held up signs reading "Fair play for all" and "Refs under watch." Every time Clark hit the floor, the boos grew louder, not for opposing players, but for the officials. Reporters described the atmosphere as volatile, saying even veteran players appeared uneasy about the league's metastasizing PR disaster. Still, WNBA leadership refused to issue any meaningful response, leaving a vacuum that fans filled with their own theories. Behind the scenes, several former referees spoke anonymously, describing a system under immense pressure. They revealed many officials were overworked, underpaid, and lived in constant fear of demotion. Some even hinted favoritism and internal politics could influence which referees were assigned to high-profile games. When combined with Clark's rising fame and polarizing reputation, it painted a troubling picture, one where personal bias could easily bleed into professional judgment. By this point, it wasn't just Clark's fans raising alarms. Analysts and even rival coaches began acknowledging that the issue had gone beyond sportsmanship to a matter of player safety and league integrity. ESPN segments debated whether the WNBA was losing control of its own narrative, with no answers and no action. The public pressure only intensified. Then came the breaking point. A whistleblower from within the officiating department reportedly contacted federal authorities, alleging that patterns in missed calls might not be accidental. The FBI had reason to look closer, and suddenly, what started as a social media uproar was turning into a full-scale federal investigation. The turning point came when a former WNBA official, whose identity remains undisclosed, stepped forward with what they called evidence of intentional negligence. According to early reports, this whistleblower claimed that certain referees were pressured, directly or indirectly, to let the game play out when it involved specific high-profile players like Caitlin Clark. The reasoning, they alleged, was that controversy drove attention, and attention meant ratings. It was a stunning claim that painted the league's silence in a whole new sinister light. Suddenly, fans weren't just accusing the referees of bias, they were accusing the WNBA of orchestrating chaos for profit. Sources close to the investigation hinted that the whistleblower provided internal emails and communications suggesting league executives had discussed how physicality boosts engagement. Those words became the spark that lit up the internet. Commentators accused the WNBA of turning Clark into a sacrificial storyline, the golden rookie, whose mistreatment was quietly tolerated because it kept people watching. The FBI's decision to step in signaled that this wasn't just a fan theory anymore. It was a matter of potential misconduct at the organizational level. The whistleblower's claims sent shockwaves through the media. Sports journalists who had once dismissed fan outrage now demanded transparency. Every network wanted a statement, but the league's office stayed locked behind closed doors. Players began to feel the weight of the growing scandal, unsure if they were caught in something bigger than basketball. Meanwhile, fans continued dissecting game footage, matching the whistleblower's claims against hours of referee decisions. The patterns were alarming: late whistles, ignored contact, and calls that seemed to favor narratives over fairness. Social media became an open courtroom, and public opinion was clear. If the claims were true, the league's credibility was hanging by a thread as federal investigators investigators began interviewing former officials and league employees, the question wasn't just whether referees were at fault, it was whether the league itself had built this chaos by design. And the truth, as many feared, was about to surface when news broke that the FBI had officially opened a preliminary investigation into the WNBA's officiating practices. The sports world went silent. What started as whispers among fans had now reached the highest level of law enforcement. According to multiple sources, the Bureau was examining allegations of misconduct, bias, and potential manipulation of game outcomes. Agents reportedly began collecting footage, communication records, and even referee assignment logs to determine whether there was a pattern suggesting deliberate negligence towards certain players, especially Caitlin Clark. The move by the FBI sent shockwaves through the league office. Executives scrambled to release a carefully worded statement insisting that the WNBA welcomes transparency and fully supports integrity in officiating. But that damage control message did little to calm fans who had already made up their minds. Many viewed the statement as another corporate deflection rather than genuine accountability. Social media was relentless, with fans tagging the FBI in old game clips, begging investigators to look at this one. Inside the league, the mood was panic. Coaches and players were suddenly advised not to comment publicly, while team owners quietly began seeking legal counsel. Insiders revealed that several referees were temporarily suspended or reassigned pending review, though the league refused to confirm details. Meanwhile, sports media outlets like ESPN and Bleacher Report began running round-the-clock coverage of the scandal, calling it the most serious integrity crisis in WNBA history. The FBI's early findings reportedly pointed to irregularities in officiating consistency, especially in games involving Caitlin Clark's team. Though no one had been charged, the implication was enough to shatter trust across the league. Fans who once celebrated the WNBA's rise now questioned every basket, every foul, every game-ending call as federal investigators continued digging. Rumors swirled that the Bureau had uncovered private communications suggesting internal debates about Clark's impact on the league's media narrative. If true, it meant officials weren't just making bad calls, they were protecting an image, and for the WNBA that revelation was far more damaging than any missed whistle. As soon as the FBI investigation became public knowledge, the media storm exploded. Every sports network, from ESPN to Fox Sports, ran segments dissecting every missed call involving Caitlin Clark. Talk shows, podcasts, and YouTube commentators tore apart slow-motion replays, comparing them to similar fouls in men's basketball that drew instant whistles. The inconsistency was undeniable. Headlines screamed about corruption, while sports panels debated whether the WNBA had turned its own referees into scapegoats to cover up larger internal failures. Public trust began collapsing fast. The WNBA had fought for years to build legitimacy and respect, but this scandal threatened to undo it overnight. Fans who had supported the league's growth now demanded resignations. Kathy Engelbert, usually calm and diplomatic, suddenly found herself under attack from every angle. Critics accused her of prioritizing brand image over player safety. Even loyal sponsors began to quietly reconsider their partnerships, not wanting their logos attached to headlines involving the FBI. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark became the face of both sympathy and controversy. Supporters rallied behind her, calling her the league's most unfairly targeted player, but others claimed she was unintentionally fueling the chaos by remaining silent, suggesting that her public comments or lack thereof were being carefully managed by agents and lawyers. Every expression she made on the court became a headline. At the same time, current and former players started speaking up. Some defended the referees, saying the job was thankless and impossible. Others hinted that favoritism had existed long before Clark's arrival, but the league never took it seriously because no one had the spotlight she did. That divide turned into open conflict online, with players arguing across social media about whether the investigation was justified. Through all of it, one fact became clear: the league's attempt to silence controversy had backfired spectacularly. The FBI wasn't just investigating the referees anymore. They were now looking into possible communication between league executives and media partners. The story had outgrown basketball, and what came next would decide the WNBA's future. Behind closed doors, the WNBA headquarters in New York turned into a pressure cooker. Meetings that were once about marketing campaigns and sponsorship deals had shifted into crisis control. Sources from inside the league claimed that executives were scrambling scrambling to contain the fallout. As FBI agents began requesting access to internal communications, panic set in when reports surfaced that emails discussing managing narratives and media perception were part of the evidence being reviewed. Those phrases alone sent shockwaves through the organization, suggesting the league might have prioritized optics over player welfare. Referees were suddenly silent. Many refused to speak publicly, fearing retaliation or legal consequences. Several veteran officials reportedly hired lawyers, unsure whether they were being treated as witnesses or suspects. Meanwhile, coaches and team staff began privately questioning how much the league office really knew. One insider leaked that certain referees had previously filed complaints about pressure from above to let high-contact games flow for entertainment value. If proven true, that would confirm what fans had suspected all along, that the WNBA had knowingly allowed chaos to boost viewership. Kathy Engelbert faced the toughest week of her tenure. League insiders said she appeared visibly exhausted, fielding constant calls from team owners demanding reassurance that the FBI wouldn't uncover anything catastrophic. Some even suggested a temporary leadership change might be necessary to protect the WNBA's image. The once celebrated commissioner who pushed for growth and visibility was now being painted as negligent and out of touch. Sponsors began quietly freezing ad placements. Television networks reportedly asked for contract reassurances in case the investigation escalated. And for players, the uncertainty was unbearable. Some feared games might be postponed or even canceled. The WNBA's dream season, fueled by Caitlin Clark's superstardom, had turned into its darkest chapter, and yet the worst revelation was still to come. The FBI had reportedly discovered internal messages hinting at direct interference in officiating assignments for key matchups. If confirmed, it would mean manipulation at the highest level, a potential scandal capable of collapsing the league from within. Just when the league thought it couldn't get worse, everything unraveled overnight. A batch of confidential documents, allegedly tied to the FBI investigation, was leaked online. The files, reportedly containing referee assignments, internal memos, and fragments of private emails, painted a disturbing picture of manipulation and control. Fans combed through every detail, finding messages where league staff discussed protecting the product and maintaining narrative balance. Those vague but chilling phrases ignited a firestorm. To the public, it confirmed what they had feared all along. The WNBA wasn't just turning a blind eye, it was pulling the strings. Screenshots of the emails spread across social media like wildfire. One particularly viral post showed a line allegedly written by a senior official: "We can't have Clark dominating every headline. It's bad for parody." Whether authentic or not, the perception alone was devastating. Fans accused the league of weaponizing referees to control outcomes and storylines. Even media outlets that had defended the WNBA began demanding ESPN anchors debated on air whether the league had crossed a moral line, while YouTube commentators and journalists dissected every word of the league correspondence. Inside the league, chaos reached a boiling point. Referees felt betrayed, players felt used, and fans felt manipulated. The supposed commitment to fairness had become a national joke. Caitlin Clark's camp released a short statement saying only, "Caitlin's focus remains on basketball," but that silence spoke volumes. The scandal had grown so large, it was now beyond any single player's control. Federal investigators confirmed that the documents would be examined for authenticity, but the damage was irreversible. Sponsors began publicly distancing themselves, pausing deals and requesting transparency reports. The WNBA's credibility, once its most valuable asset, was in freefall, and as the investigation deepened, whispers spread that indictments could be next. The once bright vision of women's basketball glory was now overshadowed by the most explosive scandal in league history. Within days of the leaks, the WNBA's entire leadership structure began to collapse. Several senior officials quietly resigned, citing personal reasons, though insiders revealed it was part of a coordinated damage control plan. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert was reportedly pressured by team owners to take an indefinite leave of absence while the investigation played out. What had once been a proud movement for women's sports empowerment had now turned into a public relations nightmare. Every network, Every newspaper, every fan forum was asking the same question: how did it get this bad? The FBI investigation was still ongoing, but early reports suggested that enough irregularities had been found to warrant a full-scale audit of the league's officiating system. Referees were ordered to undergo retraining, and an external review committee, composed of independent analysts and retired officials, was brought in to oversee future games. For many fans, it was too little too late. The WNBA's reputation had taken a beating, and rebuilding trust seemed nearly impossible. Caitlin Clark, meanwhile, became an unwilling symbol of reform. Despite her attempts to stay silent, her name was now permanently attached to the biggest scandal in WNBA history. Analysts said the way she handled herself through the storm, calm, focused, and unshaken, only elevated her status. She had become both victim and catalyst, representing every player who wanted fairness on the court. But for the league, the road to redemption would be long. Sponsors demanded transparency before renewing contracts, while fans continued flooding social media with calls for accountability. Many insisted that the only way forward was a complete overhaul from the top office down to the referee training programs. As one former coach put it, basketball survives when integrity does. The investigation had exposed cracks in the foundation, but it also offered a chance to rebuild stronger. Whether the WNBA could rise from the scandal or crumble under its own corruption remained to be seen. But one thing was certain: the league would never be the same again. The WNBA's dream of growth and mainstream respect has been overshadowed by scandal, distrust, and investigation. What began as questions about rough play against Caitlin Clark spiraled into an unprecedented FBI probe that exposed the league's deepest flaws. Players, fans, and even officials now stand at a crossroads, demanding honesty, safety, and reform. Whether the WNBA rebuilds its integrity or fades beneath its own mistakes depends on what happens next. But one truth remains: this controversy has forever changed how the world sees the league, and there's no going back to the way things were before.